Hey everybody, this is Talkative Carl back again for another discussion video this week. And we have like a few things to talk about that I want to, just get off my chest and just get my thoughts out about these particular subjects because they're very interesting. First and foremost, uh, Chris Evans' Buzz Lightyear and the trailer that came out recently. I mean, I gotta be upfront. When this was first announced a long, long time ago, I think like back in 2019, definitely before the pandemic hit, people was like well, at least I definitely was on the fence about it. It's like, and I think in some cases, people still think this way. Like, do we need like a Toy Story spinoff? And I get it's supposed to be based off from like the universe itself. It's supposed to be based off of uh, the origin story of Buzz Lightyear from its show's beginnings, in a way. Before he was turned into the show's character was turned into a toy that we've seen in the Toy Story franchise, who was voiced by Tim Allen. But this one is supposed to be obviously younger, voiced by Chris Evans. And, there have been in the recent days, some conservatives who felt, slighted against somehow that, given the fact that Tim Allen, who I like Tim Allen, he's pretty doggone cool. And even though he's a conservative, he's not like an ass of a conservative like most conservatives are, or at least right wings are. But I always loved him as Buzz Lightyear because he was always the voice. He was the character, just like how Tom Hanks will always be Woody. Now, personally, because me and my little brother had toys based off these characters, he liked Buzz Lightyear more and I like Woody more. Maybe because I like the cowboy stuff a little bit more as a kid. So I like Woody. And I didn't have a pull string. I had this little button where he talked. And of course, his Buzz Lightyear was a little bit cooler because, he got retractable wings and the lasers, and he talked when you pressed the little button on his chest, and he got a retractable visor. Yeah, it was cool, but I still like my thing. But it's just that the conservatives are fussing because you got Chris Evans, who's a known liberal, voicing a character who was previously played by one of their own. And I don't understand their fuss they making about this, because by and large, this is a kid's show, mind you. But it's I guess they have a thing with liberal Hollywood and stuff like that, and it's I guess it was, they felt like having one of their own in these kind of things kind of represents them. But Buzz Lightyear, from all we knew from the movies, doesn't carry himself like a conservative behaves, at least what we know them to be. He seems middle ground almost, in a way. He doesn't swing. Besides, these are toys. They don't swing one way or the other. They just they're just are. And besides that, I just honestly don't know why we need a spinoff in the first place. Despite, because I love Chris Evans. Chris Evans is amazing. He will always be Captain America. He's just just an awesome dude, and it's holy crap, he's just just cool as hell. But despite him doing the voice, which you only get him just saying the word "and" at the end of the trailer, and it's not much to go on with his performance, even though, because I know he will do a great job. But he also always talked about, from what I've read, he always talked about wanting to do voice works and like animation. So that's pretty cool. I would love to do that too. That's why I went to like voice acting. But you know, Toy Story should have just let it be. I mean, you're pushing your luck, Pixar, when popping these things out every handful of years, because honestly, I don't think we ever need it anymore. I mean, the third one should have been like the final wrap up, honestly, when like Andy passed off his toys towards this new girl, and he's saying his final goodbyes to his childhood friends and moving on to a new venture in his adult life, because he obviously don't need toys anymore, even though he doesn't. I mean, he could easily have them as like collectibles or something like that, but he certainly won't play with them anymore, obviously. But I like the way, the third one ended, where he's just like, I found like a good kid who likes my. You even see like that awesome moment. I wouldn't say awesome, but it's just kind of like it's like a tender moment where it's like this little girl sees the toys she was playing with that were his, and when she reached for him, he kind of like recoiled a bit. It's like no, but he had to stop and think about it. It's like, and he looks at them, and it's like you can feel the moment where he's contemplating what he's going to do, and it's like it's been a while since I've seen Toy Story 3, but he's like, I'm pretty sure he gave them a final hug, and then gave this little girl his toys, and he's playing with them one last time with this girl, telling her about like who these characters are, and what they do, and blah blah blah, before by the end of the day he's driving off waving goodbye. And it was such a tender moment, and like I don't think I was in the theater at the time, but I kid you not, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people in tears, just like this kid who we've been on this kind of not like adventure with him per se, but just by proximity with these toys, we know a lot about Andy through these toys. And like, he obviously loved these toys. You see him playing with them, and it's like he write his names on them. But then, as like the second and onto the third, when you see like there's less and less of them, except for like the core main cast, and it's like, you see like, certain, toys just venturing off on their own path and everything like that. You get to see Bo Peep one more time. I haven't seen the fourth one. I need to get around to watching that one. Maybe when I do like a review for a Toy Story franchise, I'll watch the fourth one for the first time and then give my initial thoughts on that. But yeah, I mean, it's like you gotta let Toy Story rest in peace. I mean, like you kind of pushed your luck with the third one, and you managed to eke out a decent story from what I heard out of the fourth one, but you're really pushing your luck. And the trailer itself for Buzz Lightyear, it looks, phenomenal. I gotta say, it's definitely like a far cry from what we saw from the first movie. But it'd be kind of funny. Since we got Chris Evans, voicing Buzz Lightyear, it'd be funny if we get like a Woody story, like origin story, but him being voiced instead of Tom Hanks, it'd be voiced by Robert Downey Jr. That I think that'll be like an awesome twist. Like, okay, if we could do these spin-offs with these two main people, but we're gonna cast Iron Man to be a cowboy and Captain America to be a spaceman or a guy in armor, in a way. That will be funny as hell. And it's like, okay, if they do something like that, that'll be kudos to them, and like, you have my money on that part. But yeah, that's what I think on the subject. I mean, like, honestly, I do not think it's like really I I still maintain. I'm pretty sure I thought this way from when I started hearing about this, and we started seeing like the first still images, of this, a couple of years back, and it's like, do we need it? Honestly, I don't think so. They should let there's certain franchises they need to just let go. They were successful. They did well. They were fine from the time that they were in. And if you manage to make maybe a successful sequel years down the line, you should not push your luck. Because this trailer can make it look awesome, but can be turned out to be like, maybe not bad, but just mediocre or just so-so. But I don't know if it's going to be ranked like the movie Up or anything like that. Or even bring back the same feels as the first one. But I don't know. I mean, like, I personally think they should just let Toy Story be. Okay, it had its time. It was fun. It's like we grew up with Andy at this point. People who watched Andy and these toys as little kids are adults now, and some of which have their own kids who will probably show them the first 3-4 Toy Story movies. But you can't, sometimes you cannot recapture. That's why I'm a little worried about the next Ghostbuster movie next month, because you can't recapture something that is, was made a long time ago. It's very difficult to get. I mean, I think like The Incredibles 2 managed to just barely make it successful, given the fact that how long it's been since the previous one, but they just managed to pull it off. But even with Toy Story 4, it's been like a gap. Or no, Toy Story 3, it's been a gap between 2 and 3. And they just managed to make 3 a success and managed to end it on a good note. And that's why, like, I don't feel like it needs to be touched. You managed to end the franchise on a good note. Leave it be, honestly. But anyway, next one, the Uncharted movie trailer. Yeah, Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg. After this trailer, like I never played an Uncharted game, to be honest. I always watched the walkthroughs of other people playing this game, and I checked on the PlayStation Store yesterday, and I can get except for the last one, not the Lost Sisters, Lost Ladies. I remember a long time ago. This is a side note about this like spin-off kind of Uncharted game with these two women. If you ever watch Maximilian Dude on YouTube or Twitch, very entertaining. I love those guys. There was his wife. I remember a long time ago. When this the Lost Ladies or wherever, when it was announced, or at least when the trailer came out for it. I remember around that time, I could be wrong. It would be around that same year or maybe like a year after the game was already released. Yeah, she was doing this little cooking thing in her kitchen. It's like, it's something I was enjoyed. I don't think she's doing that as much anymore. But when she did it, she made this little comment, and I thought, to this day, it was fucking hilarious. And because to this day, that's how I refer to this spinoff. She called it like Uncharted The Lost Lesbians, and I lost my shit. That was so damn funny. And to this day, that's how I refer to it. I don't care how you view it and politically correct or whatever like that, but it's like, that's as funny as hell comment. That's how I view that game. It's like just Uncharted The Lost Lesbians. That that to me in my brain is the title. That is so fucking funny. But aside from that game, which I don't think anybody was interested in, or at least even remotely, let me know in the comments, have you ever played that particular spinoff? Did you enjoy it? Because I don't think anybody did. But the first 3 Uncharted games are in a collection that's like $19. I can buy and play on my PS5. But the final one, the Uncharted 4, where he's like partnering up with his long lost brother, with Nathan Drake partnering up with his long lost brother. I gotta buy like separate, but they're relatively cheap. So I figured by maybe in the new year, at some point in the new year, I'll start like a walkthrough with the Uncharted games from like first, second, third, and fourth. But I gotta make sure, be careful, because I do not want to get over bogged down with too much, because I always get like caught up if I got too much stuff to play. Because by next month I'll be starting like the new Pokemon game, Brilliant Diamond, and then eventually next month, I mean like the December, will be Halo Infinite, and then like I'm not sure where in the spring, where like I can't remember when God of War Ragnarok comes out, but like Ragnarok and let me look this up. Ragnarok release date and the Horizon Zero Dawn 2, when those release dates, because I do not want to get like have them overlap. So on GameStop. Sorry, just 1 second here. Shoot. Okay. I don't think there's, a release date for Ragnarok. Yeah, we know it's coming out next year. Yeah, supposed to release in like the first Horizon 2 is supposed to release in the first quarter. So they don't have a definitive. Oh, well, no. I think, yeah, it doesn't have a definitive release date. I'm pretty sure it's in February, being like the first quarter. Yeah, February 18th. Yeah, it looks like February 18th. So, yeah, I mean, for right now, we don't have like a release date of God of War Ragnarok officially. We know it's going to be next year at some point. But Horizon 2 will come out on February 18th next year. So, I'm not sure if I'm still be playing like Pokemon Brilliant Diamond, because that's what I'm going to get from my Nintendo Switch. But what about what was the next thing? God dang it. The next Pokemon game, Arceus. It just says early 2022, so possibly maybe March. So yeah, I'm a little worried that I might get bogged down with too much stuff. So I'm gonna probably pace myself or something. But I'm getting feedback from people saying like I should definitely try out Uncharted on the channel. So I figure why not? Because honestly, from the trailer for the movie got me, like always been curious about Uncharted. I always loved Nolan North as a voice actor. He's like amazing. Uh, I really he really caught my attention when I played the first Deadpool game, and like I didn't realize he was like gonna be the voice, and it's like from that point on, I just love Nolan North. Easily one, like next to maybe like Tara Strong, easily my favorite voice actor. Oh, and no, like I think like no, Stephen Bloom actually is the top favorite. Steve Bloom, Tara Strong, and Nolan North in that order is my favorite voice actors of all time. They like because Tara Strong is pretty much like the voice for a lot of people's childhoods. Honestly, that cannot be ignored. There's other people, uh, throughout the years, like you know, like like Cree Summers, I think that's her name, who does a lot of voices, like Susie from Rugrats. Susie Carmichael. Cree Summer, I got it right. Yeah, Cree Summer. Cree Summer is like another great one. I knew her last name was Summer. I just was on the fence about the first name. I'm not good with names. Uh, but yeah, I mean, onto the trailer itself. Here's the thing. From the walkthroughs that I've seen of the Uncharted games back in the day, they already were like, I mean, like, for a good 10 or so years now, movies, well, since like probably like the mid 2000s moving forward, movies have been trying to, simulate like very cinematic movie like stuff. And it's like the Uncharted franchise are like, one of the few that actually, seem like they came pretty close. Even though I'm not a fan of The Last of Us, and I've seen like the walkthrough of the first one, didn't really care for the sequel. I already voiced my opinion about the sequel, but even then, those seem very cinematic, very movie-like, and it's like try to adapt a game into a movie is already tough enough. But adapting a game that's already in its format seems like you watching a movie already and trying to bring it to the big screen is going to be a little tough, because there are, like in recent years, they've been like doing well with video games, and turning into movies. The Sonic movie is one such example that people was very hesitant on thinking it was going to be successful. Turned out to be successful, probably because of the face they fixed. But then like the new Mortal Kombat movie, I liked it. I think it was like a solid start to like a big franchise that they obviously want to do, and I think they actually want to get approved of, or if not, they already been approved of, because honestly, it's amazing. I think like the new Mortal Kombat movie is amazing. It's like a good start, and like Sub-Zero in it was phenomenal, like a straight up like horror movie. You never think someone like Sub-Zero can be like a slasher type of horror monster. If you watch that movie again, it's on HBO Max. If you watch that movie again, I'm telling you, it's like the director like took moments from like Jason Voorhees or Michael Myers and applied it to Sub-Zero. It is just awesome. Uh, and then like the rebooted Tomb Raider film, 5 or so years ago, I think it was okay. It didn't do exceptionally well, didn't blow anything out the water, but I think it's trying to match the rebooted game and run parallel to that. I'm pretty sure last time I checked, they still is considering a sequel to that, which I hope gets approved because it wasn't too bad of a beginning. They obviously built into something trying to match up what they were doing with the reboot of the game, which did exceptionally well. I really love those rebooted Tomb Raider games that I played in the past few years. If you haven't played those, highly recommend it. Very good Tomb Raider games. But yeah, this Uncharted, of course, like this is supposed to be Nathan Drake in his younger days, and Mark Wahlberg playing a young Sully without the mustache, but I'm pretty sure he'll have the mustache by the end of the movie. But then you see I know Tom Holland, he's been in other movies besides Spider-Man, but it's like if you play a role so well, it's hard to separate in your mind that he's playing a different role altogether in a totally different franchise. So, but it's just your brain. It's hard to get your brain off of Spider-Man when you see Tom Holland. And you see him because he's very good at parkour. He's a great dancer. So he knows how to move. And you get to see him like go through these, on his, cargo ship. And he's like hopping off these little, these storage unit, things that's being dumped off the back of the plane. And he's hopping over them. And it's like, that doesn't take you out of it because obviously, you believe that, yeah, Tom Holland can easily do those things. So it's, very little stunt actor involved when it comes to Tom Holland. But it's just, I don't know. Because I definitely want to just go see it just to make a firm decision. But it's just, I don't know. I definitely think it will do better than the Tomb Raider rebooted movie. But I'm assuming that my best guess, it might do probably as equally as well as the Mortal Kombat movie, if not slightly better. Just slightly. But we got to see the finished product to make a firm decision. But honestly, I don't know. I do not know. Because, I'm pretty sure, certain writers and directors in the past few years have grown to understand, because it's probably people from my generation or younger or slightly younger who grew up with these games, know, or at least play these games, or are gamers themselves, who have an appreciation of these characters and the franchise to understand there's no cutting corners. And they believe in these projects. So unlike back in the day, when we wasn't a part of the table when making these kind of movies, those people back then, by and large, were half-assing it because they didn't have any faith like that behind it, or any kind of studio backing. Now that everything has to be a franchise, thanks to the MCU, no shit on the MCU. I don't mind it because by this point there's like a lot of cool characters that are part of franchises because it's been so many years. And like the Mortal Kombat film, like I said as an example, but Uncharted as well. Uncharted had 4 movies, so you can easily make arguably 4 movies, and you can see Tom Holland grow up a little bit more, and like, because he can pull off a good young Nathan Drake, but it's just like I'm really on the fence about it. It's not like I'm opposed to it, but I'm just do not know, and I'm not totally sold on the trailer. And when I was younger, like I mean not younger, but it's like it's been development hell. This movie's been in development hell for I guess several years, and it's like, you know, directors been names been tossed around and writers been tossed around and actors been tossed around. When it first was brought up, I always thought, okay, always apply Nolan North's voice to Nathan Drake because he's the voice actor. And I figure if they would have get this movie greenlit years ago, Nolan North could have easily have been like a live action Nathan Drake. But I understand, you know, he's not like old man or anything like that. But it's like I think he's like in his like 50s or so, late 40s, early 50s, something like that. So I don't think he can like move like that the way Nathan Drake is known to do. So they obviously had to go with younger. When they finally settled on, you know, greenlit in this movie, obviously casting Tom Holland. Tom Holland might not be a bad idea, but Mark Wahlberg as Sully, I don't know. I like Marky Mark, but it's it's tough to get. Maybe we will get another trailer and see him a little bit more of what he can bring to the Sully character. Maybe I'll be a little bit more sold on it. It's just that I can't recall the last good Mark Wahlberg film he was in. I struggle to remember because he's been in like a handful of stuff. None of them were that good, if good at all. But we'll see. Next, I'm gonna briefly touch on this one. Hayden Christensen is coming into the Ahsoka series with, like, Hayden Christensen, co-starring with Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka. And Rosario Dawson killed it as Ahsoka in The Mandalorian. Honestly, it's like great TV. It's like next to the Daredevil series, The Mandalorian, the people behind The Mandalorian, just like the people behind Daredevil TV series, those are legit TV series. I mean, like, they put their foot in it. Those are amazing. But obviously, I have complete faith with the Ahsoka series. Like, I was on the fence about the Star Wars Visions. I didn't at first care about Star Wars Visions or the Bad Batch. I gave them a watch. Bad Batch is cool. I not like gung ho to see it early as possible on Disney Plus, like I have with WandaVision, Loki, and Falcon and Winter Soldier. But it was all right. There's characters I love. I love Omega, especially. The only time I ever want to use the word Omega is when I say in the New Zealand accent, like Omega. I'm not trying to make fun of the New Zealand accent, but just like that's the only way I want to say her name is with that accent. It just makes sense in my brain to do it. And but I think I like Star Wars Visions a little bit more, and it's like it's legit great storytelling, except for episode 2, because like with like this old band people, musical musicians, it's probably like the most boring one. But everything else is like, at least 2 or 3 studios working on, a few of these episodes. The first episode was easily my favorite. I love that chalky kind of art design. It looked amazing. The creative use of like lightsabers. I mean, like, Star Wars Visions is really, really good, and hopefully we'll get something like that with different studios, doing like a 15-minute shorts of their take on what's going on in the Star Wars universe that has nothing to do with like Skywalkers or Solos or Admiral Akbars or Chewies or nothing like that. It's just like, centered in the same universe, but with just different, group of people in different parts of the series timelines. They can be way in the past, in the middle, or way past either like Return of the Jedi or way past any of the sequel trilogies. That they've been killing it with the shows rather than like any of the movies. But Hayden Christensen coming back as Anakin Skywalker, because it has to be, because Ahsoka's grown up, and this is long after Vader has been defeated and the Emperor has been defeated. So he obviously has to be like a Force ghost, because spoiler alert, Darth Vader / Anakin Skywalker is dead by this point when Ahsoka is a little bit more grown. And it has to be maybe like a few episodes. I'm not sure how long the episode in this season 1 are going to be. Possibly maybe 6 or 8 seasons, 1 of the 2. 6 or 8 episodes in a season, 1 of the 2. So he probably has to show up at least half of them, at the most. But Hayden Christensen is also showing up in the Obi-Wan series, obviously as Darth Vader. But man, I know it was probably one of them. I just cannot recall. But it didn't take me too long after the prequel trilogies. I'm pretty sure maybe it wasn't until a little bit after the Return of the Sith where like I was a little bit more forgiving, because it took a while before everybody knew that the blame wasn't on the actors per se. It was on George Lucas's crappy writing and directing, because the actors just had to say the lines, but just they wasn't given much direction. And I think by and large, people threw Natalie Portman and Hayden Christensen, and to some extent, Sam Jackson, almost everybody except like the guy who's playing like Palpatine and Ewan McGregor. There was the only two that they actually pulled out impeccable performances, but everybody just seems like they put in, and they all are great actors, and they put in kind of like minimum to subpar kind of work, and it wasn't on them. This wasn't given true direction, and the lines they had to read, even they could not make it sound believable. It's like the lines between Padme and Anakin didn't feel organic whatsoever. It's like not even half attempted at all. It was so piss poor. And I felt bad for Hayden Christensen, especially because I think he was thrown on the bus a lot more because he's representing one of the most iconic movie villains of all time. And he's supposed to be representing his rise and downfall into the dark side. And eventually I will do like movie reviews of the Star Wars films. But I want to mention this here right now. He was actually a pretty good Anakin Skywalker. Not like that little twerp kid from Phantom Menace. Like, I don't think that kid kind of grew up to be a good person anyway. At least last time I vaguely remember. But Hayden Christensen actually pulled out, I think it's kind of informed by the Clone Wars and Rebels. But in the prequel movies, Clone Wars and Return of the Sith, he arguably had like, he's a pretty good, you already know he's a good actor, but it's just, I can see certain moments that he's doing like a really good job in certain like facial expressions, and there are certain lines that was pretty good. And it's like his time with like the Emperor and his time with Obi-Wan, you see his like, and then time with Yoda, you can see like, because like this is when like the Jedi Order was like stagnant in their ways and like did not see the forest through the trees. And it's like they were so clueless to the fact that they had like a Sith among their midst with Palpatine or Chancellor, and it's like they were blind and it was too late before they can actually do anything about it, and they lost. It was a complete culling. They lost. I'm not sure. It was like a large percentage, but just to be generous, they probably like somewhere between like 5 to like 10% of the Jedi left after Order 66 was implemented, and then the few that was left kind of scattered to the winds, and they was either in hiding, or they a few were found and killed off, or they started training in secret until they eventually build up the order. Eventually the order again. Luke eventually come around and like he started building his own order, and that will be a little bit more interesting of Ahsoka meeting a Skywalker. I think it'd be. I mean, obviously, Force Ghost Anakin he can easily talk to, and words from the horse's mouth, describe, what had happened. But I thought it would be, personally, I will always had thought that Luke talking with Ahsoka and telling him that I redeemed my father and like I saved Anakin in his last moments. Anakin came back, and it'll be like a moment. And given how awesome of an actor Rosario Dawson is, just to see like I picture in my head hearing from Luke that I saved Anakin, I saved my father. He's back, and like just to see her like just crumple to the ground, tears well up, and it's just like my master came back. Anakin, he came back from the dark side. It's like I knew it. I knew he was still there, and it's like something like that, like that kind of powerful emotion. But I guess you can get that same feeling from Anakin directly himself as a Force Ghost. Probably the first time they will see each other, Force Ghost Anakin talking with Ahsoka, telling her what had happened. And then I'm back. I'm sorry what I did. I was misled. I was fearful of losing, someone I care about, and like that fear led to hate, and hate led to dark side, and I knew better, but it's just, I love my wife, and I did not want her to lose her, and that's the trouble with the Jedi Order back in the day. There was like hardcore monks that's like you can't have any attachments. You are ripped away from your parents or guardians at like a very young age to be trained as monks, samurai monks in a way, samurai wizard monks in a way, without the possibility of like having true relationships with a significant other, children. And there's only one way of teaching with the Jedi Order. There's no gray area. There is a gray area, but they don't want to teach it. They don't believe it. But then it wasn't until until the moment when Yoda passed in the Empire Strikes Back, where it's like, if you look deeper into certain history, or at least like the Wikipedia of like a backstory of Yoda, he learns that it's like his, eventually after Order 66, he learns that he's failed. That's his, that's on him. He failed to see what he should have been seeing. He was stagnant and, felt like this is the way I was taught. This is how we've always been taught. It's been working well so far. And there was no wiggle room. And what he was teaching Anakin wasn't solid advice. he wasn't very helpful, and he had some part into pushing him into Palpatine's hands. And in a way, for a period of time, they lost their greatest champion to the enemy. And like, I mean, I honestly think now that Hayden, I haven't seen much of what Hayden Christensen has been doing beyond Star Wars, except for maybe like Jumper, and like it's got to be something else I recall seeing him in. I can't remember, but I know it was in Jumper, and it's like he is a great performer, and it's like some people say, like, you know, we'll know for sure if in this series that he can pull out some good acting, that, you know, it was all on Lucas's fault that kind of ruined his career for a stint in time, because it's just like with like the Twilight series and what's his name playing Robert Pattinson, and it's like he had to do some indie movies here and there before he got cast as Batman, because he, you know, the Twilight franchise went into the, was already in the toilet. It was crap, but it really went into the toilet even further. You talking about bad dialogue? That has horrible dialogue, even more so than like the prequels, ironically. And I gotta say, given the fact that Robert Pattinson get another bite at the apple in Hollywood, not that he lost it, but just like now he's in like a big franchise, at least part of a big franchise now. It's like we get to see that, you know, that turnaround, and I really want to see. I think we all want to see that turnaround with Hayden Christensen, and it's like, okay, he's back into the franchise, like he's Vader, and he's Anakin. It's like that's like he's like part of that now, like it or not. And now we get to see that, you know, at least for some people, we get to see truly that he has the acting chops on his own merit without any kind of bad influence from a poor director / writer. Or if it was him, we'll know for sure. But, you know, I think by and large, people think, yeah, that was Lucas's fault, not Hayden. And Hayden will, you know, really pull out all the stops in the series, and like, you know, all those naysayers will suck the fuck up forever. Okay. And then finally, Kamala Khan. And this is going to touch on briefly, but like I heard like a couple of days ago, I'm not sure if it's just a rumor 100%, so don't quote me on this, but I read somewhere like the MCU, when they bring in Kamala Khan, Marvel is toying with the idea of altering her powers slightly, or at least her embiggening powers, because they are afraid from when they bring in Mr. Fantastic, they are afraid that the audience might get confused between the two characters. How the fuck will you get confused between Miss Marvel and Mr. Fantastic? These are entirely two separate characters. Yes, they have stretchy powers, but there are plenty of characters which, in comic book history, they have stretchy powers. Plastic Man, Elongated Man. We don't confuse them with Mr. Fantastic whatsoever, mostly because they're part of DC Universe. But Kamala Khan is an Inhuman, and that's another fear, you know, some people have, and I do too. I'm afraid they might be considering because how badly the Inhumans show turned out years ago, they might be toying with the idea of just changing her to be maybe like a mutant instead of an Inhuman. And no matter how good you might write it to be, I am totally resisting of that. I hope they don't do that, because despite how poorly Inhumans were, you can easily kind of soft reboot the Inhumans now that the TV showrunner is not part of this anymore. You can actually get, you know, Kevin Feige can hire somebody competent to roll out the Inhumans, maybe not in a TV show, but in like a movie format, like they're doing with Eternals. Even though the Eternals, in the trailer, very Inhuman-esque. But they can easily soft reboot the Inhumans to make them great again. But I do not want them to alter what we know of Kamala Khan's origin to be. As a solid origin, and she arguably is like one of the best Inhumans by far in the last decade at this point. And it's just how like I'm kind of resistant on, because I've been meaning to talk about this too, Riri Williams, who is well known in her origin story in her comics, which I will eventually read, probably during Black History Month, is from Chicago, and they're gonna probably, from what I heard, they're gonna probably kind of soft reboot her to being from Wakanda, moving into New York, and you already got like a New Yorker cast in the role of Riri Williams, Ironheart, and it's like that part is a nitpick, I admit, because like I personally think a person who's being cast to be Riri Williams should be from Chicago to inherently know, instead of having to learn about Chicago mannerisms, Chicago languages, the dialect, learn about like, certain locations that are familiar from Chicagoans. And it's like that it kind of sucks. But I think it would be a little bit more egregious just to take her from Chicago. She's from Chicago. Can you imagine if they decided to bring in Spider-Man into the MCU in Civil War, but he's not from Queens, he's from Nebraska, that he had to move to Queens, so he's technically from Nebraska? How warped that would be, and like so incorrect. That's how I feel about Riri Williams. She is a Chicago girl, a Chicago black woman from the South Side. At least I believe she's from the South Side. It'd be crazy to be from the West Side. But that's how I feel. It's like there's certain things about a character's origins that's synonymous to who they are, and it's like taking that away or altering it seems like a detriment or a cheat to, or you betraying the character in some fashion. That's how I feel. I highly resist that if they considering altering her history from being an Inhuman. Because, from the game, despite the Avengers game kind of sucked, but the Kamala Khan part, it wasn't the bad part. But from the comics and everything like that, TV shows, the few that she has been in, she's an Inhuman. Do not change that. Despite how you feel about Inhumans, they can easily soft reboot that to make that better. Just like they have to do that with the Fantastic Four and the X-Men. But, that is just, I don't care how well it might be written. I do not like the idea of that being changed. Just like I don't like the idea, would never like the idea of you trying to change her heritage or something like that. Because there's certain things about Kamala Khan that we like that should not be toyed with at all or altered in any kind of way. She's fine the way she is. Just adapt that and put it on screen and be done with it. Or you can just touch on Inhumans. We don't have to address Inhumans until you're ready to address Inhumans. But don't mess with that, bit of her origin. She went through Terragenesis. That is pretty much acknowledged into the zeitgeist in the past 5 to 10 years at this point. Yeah, I mean, I it's like, how do you confuse? Who would confuse her? And like, even if there was like a minute amount of people that might confuse her with Mr. Fantastic, which I highly doubt that is even possible, but that's probably such a minor amount of group of people compared to like the overall masses who know. So who the hell cares if a few people might confuse her with Mr. Fantastic? Do people confuse Deadpool with Wolverine? Honestly? Or vice versa? They have the same healing factor, but we all know who's who. Despite maybe the minute amount of people who might, either jokingly or seriously call Deadpool Wolverine, by the masses understanding, they are two different people who happen to have the same power. I mean, what people confuse Emma Frost with Jean Grey, they both psychics. To confuse Jean Grey with Professor X, they're both psychics. You can't. They're two vastly different people. We all understand that. That's what boggles the mind. That's what I said. Like I hope they really do not do that. But that's what I wanted to talk about is get off my chest, because honestly that's just like it's been like a very weird, questionable. Aside from the Hayden Christensen story, the other topics is something I'm very weary about, but we'll know more in the future. But tell me what you think about any one of these topics and what's your opinion on the subject. Follow me on my various, if you're watching this on YouTube, follow me on like my various links in the description. And I will see you next time for another discussion video, depending on, well, probably not next week, but wherever might happen while I'm going on my trip up to the point where I come back, I will make a discussion video about that at some point on that week. But until then, I'll see you guys soon. And don't forget to check out my Halloween themed videos throughout the month of October that I posted on the channel. And enjoy. And I hope to see you guys soon. Peace.